And tragedy in yesterday's $2 million Golden Slipper at Rosehill. For trainer Lee Friedman, there was the elation of winning his fourth slipper in a row after victory by Melbourne filly Merlene. But for jockey Greg Hall, there was tragedy after being suspended for 2 months and fined $50,000 for careless riding.
It's the richest and most colourful day of Sydney's autumn racing carnival. Jockey Shane Dyer was chasing a record 5th slipper win, trainer Lee Friedman a record 4th, and the punters, record value.
And Merlene.
The betting reflected the fact that this was the most evenly matched field in the event's 39-year history. The Kerry Packer-owned Merlene, the early favourite, Gay Waterhouse's charge, Magic of Sydney, looked superb in the enclosure, but had the extreme outside barrier to overcome.
Flavors 3 wide on the outside of Master Jolly. Armadale on the fence. Merlene looking for the way out. Oh, there's trouble on the turn as Merlene came out. Brave Bulldog was hampered, and so was Sovereign State. Magic of Sydney is taken to the extreme outside. Coming to the 200 mark. Paint is the leader, but here comes Merlene. Merlene on the outside is coming at Paint with Flavour between them. Merlene shot to the front 100 metres out. She's racing away, the little Danehill filly, and Merlene is going to score a magnificent win in the slipper. 4 for the Friedmans. Paint got second, Flavour third.
What a buzz. Had a year off last year, so I was away, and I won it 2 years ago for Lee, and it's fantastic.
And Lee Friedman joining David a little later in the program. Meanwhile, Rough Quest has survived a protest to win this year's English Grand National steeplechase at Aintree. Stewards cleared the 7-1 favourite of interference after the 10-year-old beat Encore en Peur and superior finish over the 7-kilometre course.
Thumbs up from David Bridgewater on board Encore en Peur before the off, but good luck was to desert him after the final fence. The start was clean for the smallest national field since 1970, 27 horses, and by the feared Beecher's Brook first time round, 3 brownies led the way. Then it was the turn of the rank outsider, Shaw Metal, at 200 to 1, the longest priced of the lot, charging across the Melling Road and jumping like a champion out in front. It wasn't to last though, and by Beecher's second time around, young Hustler had taken up the running. At the second last though, David Bridgewater on Encore en Peur must have thought he was heading for victory with a fantastic leap, taking 2 lengths out of the rest. Rough Quest had come from down the field, staying out of trouble, but over the last he was right alongside Encore en Peur and getting stronger. A moment of controversy past the elbow as the 2 horses appeared to touch. But from there, Rough Quest, second in the Gold Cup at Cheltenham a couple of weeks earlier, powered through to win by 1.5 lengths and give the Grand National its first winning favourite at 7-1 since way back in 1982.
What a race. And still overseas, and Australia's Michael Doohan.
If you really want to get amongst the money, get yourself into the GGs. In Dubai, the best came to town for the World Cup, an event worth a staggering $4 million. Australia's Dane win finished down the track as American horse Cigar held off Soul of the Matter in a sensational tussle to take home almost $3 million. It was Cigar's 14th straight victory, and it took his career prize money to more than $7.5 million. That'll certainly buy a bit of chaff. Back home, and wasn't it great to see David
racing yesterday, and of course the big one at Rosehill Gardens yesterday, the Golden Slipper for 1996. Joining me, Max Presnell. Max, a day of mixed fortune for the jocks. Darren Beedman winning a double in Group 1 races. Greg Hall taking out the big one on Merlene, but a $50,000 fine and a 2-month suspension.
Yes, certainly sensational aftermaths. The punter in me says that Greg Hall did what he had to do. Of course, I was on Merlene. The critics say that Greg only had to wait another 50 metres. He would have got a clear run anyway, but great jockeys don't wait, they make it happen.
Well, Keith Elliott's down in Melbourne. Keith, you weren't here at Rosehill yesterday, you were in Melbourne, but a couple of interesting Melbourne fillies dominated the scene.
Yes, they did indeed, David. Celius and also Merlene. We've passed the hat around here in the Channel 7 studios for Greg this morning. $4.75 he doesn't have to worry about towards the 50 grand. I wondered whether this was an occasion, Max, for the maximum monetary penalty of $50,000.
Listening to Ray Murray and the inquiry, Keith, I would say that $50,000 in his opinion is too slight. He would have rather made it 60. I'm sure that Murray and the AJC and STC stewards would have liked to increase the penalty. It is the golden slipper. We're saying up here now, well, the stewards are doing what they think is right. Isn't it about time the STC did what should be done and lessen the number of runners in the golden slipper, eliminate or attempt to eliminate some of the interference?
Or the subject of relegation?
Well, I think that's taken a bit too severe. I'd like to put that on Lee Friedman, actually, what he thinks about relegation.
Well, Lee's joined us in the studio. Lee, congratulations, 4 in a row for you. But you often said that you need a good horse, a good jockey and some good luck. But obviously that all came together yesterday.
Yeah, it's been a great race for us, David. I mean, you know, to win 4 and end, we couldn't have ever imagined doing that. But I was just discussing with Max outside. We have had a lot of luck in the race. I mean, in every instance where we've won it, our horses have had a fairly incident-free run, which is, I think, very important in most big races.
OK, well, joining us in the Melbourne studios down there with Keith is Greg Hall, the winning jockey. Greg, after that $50,000 fine, I hope we picked up your cab fare this morning to the studio, did we?
Yeah, well, the $4.75 that Keith raised for me, I'm going to give that to the Good Friday appeal.
Greg, as Max said, the punter in him suggested you did the right thing. Looking back, obviously you got an appeal coming up on Wednesday, so you probably can't say too much about it. Did you think you were harshly treated yesterday?
Yeah, I think I was. I think I was very harshly treated. I mean, Lee says, I mean, yes, we do have the luck in it and that, but you still got a job to do, and you know, and I know you can't sort of interfere with the other boys and that, but the horses outside me weren't going that well at the time, and it was a crucial time for me. As Max says, he's talking from the punter side of it, but I mean, there is a lot of punters out there on Merlin too. I mean, you've got owners to think of, and plus your trainer. You know, I mean, all these guys employ you to do a job, and I mean that's what they expect of you, and I think the penalties are too severe in Australia. They're just ridiculous, actually.
Just to add to that debate, and of course I viewed it from afar, but the charge was of careless riding, which there are many more serious charges, yet the fine was the maximum. And I wondered whether that equated. I mean, what would have happened if Greg had skittled the horses that he had endangered? The maximum fine was still $50,000.
Greg is fortunate, as I mentioned, that that was the harshest fine the stewards can apply, because the rule says 2 months and $50,000. Again, Murray, he said, if it was left up to him, it would have been greater, certainly $60,000. So it's interesting, but it was laid down, I believe, before the race, Greg, that any interference would not be viewed kindly, and they would be looking to just snavel up the winning cheque of any jockey that caused blatant interference.
Yeah, Max, I mean, we say that, but I mean, you know, I've got a lot of... I mean, I'm sure the public wouldn't have been too happy with me if I had stayed 5th or 6th on the fence. I mean, forget my connections or my trainers. The public alone, I mean, you are on a 3-to-1 favourite. You have got obligations, you know. You're not on a 200-to-1 shot that was the horse directly outside me. I mean, I sort of agree with Keith a bit. I've got the maximum. I mean, in the scale of 1 to 10, the charge I've been charged with is number 1. It's the barest charge you can get on. I mean, it's not foul riding. It's not improper. It's not being abusive to the stewards. I mean, the great sportsmen all around the world. We see them time in and time out. There was a segment on telly the other night about how the sportsmen are getting out of hand, how they, you know, with umpires and different situations. I mean, and they're getting paid mega bucks from sponsorship, and that they get fined $5,000. The next Saturday they can go and play tennis. I mean, jockeys get $65. I mean, you ask for a half a kilo rise in weights or a sponsorship badge or something like that. Oh no, you can't have that, son. But you can have $50,000 fine.
Keith, we might just go to the actual race itself now and get Lee's thoughts on it. Named after Merlin Otti, and obviously performs like it too.
Yeah, well, it's great. We've had a lot of luck actually with horses named after great sports people, because of course we had Scalacci as well, so I think this will become a trend Australian-wide, certainly for us to name more of these horses.
Let's go back 5 years ago, you probably would not have thought that in the years to come you're going to have 4 of these slippers under your belt.
No, never really. You know, it's just been one of those races that's been very kind to me, and we've had a good crop of 2-year-olds this year, and I thought of any year that this was very winnable this year, because as I said, over the board, we had the best crop of 2-year-olds we'd had all year.
This is where the trouble started.
Now, Merlene is the green colours and the red cap, and you can see the big G just trying to get out of what could be a difficult situation.
What were your thoughts going through here, Greg?
Yeah, well, my thoughts were obviously Max's eyes was on me. See, I mean, they say Max, I could have waited another 50 metres. Now that's not quite right because that's a bad angle. Where Flavour was and the way Darren Beedman's riding, he's the top rider in Australia at the moment. We've seen what he done on Flavour with Magic of Sydney. Now he was in the same position with me on Merlene, and I wasn't going to fall into that trap, I can assure you. But what I'm saying is, Max, Flavour was three-quarters of length back behind those three vying for the lead, which was going to make the situation impossible. So I sort of had to come back and come out. I know it looks like on tally I could have waited longer, but to do that, the horses in front of me would have been coming back on me.
You did what you had to do.
I know, and I'm glad you said that, Max, actually, because I heard you make
the tribunal with you, actually.
You made a quote yesterday that wasn't for the press, but at least you've brought it out on national TV.
Lee, it's not the first time, though, that this race has caused controversy. Max mentioned the situation that maybe the numbers should be reduced. What are your thoughts on it?
Oh, I'd like to think about it a bit longer. I mean, yeah, I guess on face value it would be better with less runners, probably maybe 12 or 14, of which all of them would have a really good chance. There's probably, and I know it was said last week under different circumstances, but it's probably true that there are horses that run in it that have got no hope of winning. And I just sometimes wonder whether they should be there or not. But well, it's hard to tell someone they can't run if they've already qualified, isn't it? Yeah.
The dividends from yesterday in New South Wales, Merlene paid $5.20 and $2.30, Paint $2 even, and Flavour $3.50, and the trifecta paid $112 even. We'll ask Lee and Greg to stay with us. There's more racing on the other side of the break. You're watching Sportsworld. Wednesday action at Rosehill Gardens yesterday on Golden Slipper Day, but as we go back to Melbourne, Keith Hillier, a little bird told me that you didn't turn your watch back this morning and you've been sitting there for an hour. Is that true?
Make that an hour and 10 minutes, David. Thanks a lot.
Is that jet lag from the Dubai World Cup, or...?
Maybe, but I'll be seeking that little bird. I suspect it's Max. David, just before we leave the slipper, I mean, the aftermath preoccupied us. We should acknowledge that it was 4 in a row for Lee. That's a marvellous training performance. 2 out of the past 3 for Greg, and 3 in a row for the progeny of Danehill. They were the positives that emerged.
OK, what about the other positive yesterday in the Tulloch's Wine Stakes, the performance of Peep on the Sly?
He's a very good 3-year-old. I just wonder whether he's maybe a length behind the better ones, Octagonal and Nothing Like a Dane and Co. But, gee, this is a performance that is full of merit. And his trainer, Bob Maxwell, said, don't overlook him in the Derby, and perhaps we shouldn't. To my mind, he's a length or 2 behind the best, but I wouldn't mind him in my backyard.
Lee, how do you rate him?
Yeah, I think it's a reasonably accurate assessment, David. I think he perhaps just doesn't have the acceleration that the other 2 may have at the end of 2,400 metres, but he's still a very good horse. Well,
the big question I want to put to you as a trainer from the opposition camp, the performance of Octagonal yesterday, do you rate him now? Can we put the champion tag on him?
I hate Octagonal. I've run into Octagonal a few times now. I did beat him in the Golden Slipper last year, but he's since beaten us in the Cox Plate and again yesterday. But no, seriously, he's a tremendous horse. I think champion 3-year-old and will probably be horse of the year this year.
And Beedman's performance on him yesterday, Max, was fantastic.
A great combination. But, Lee, can Octagonal be the same horse in the AJC Derby on Saturday as he has been backing up 3 hard runs in 3 Saturdays?
Well, that's the big question, and I guess that won't be answered until after he runs next week. He's obviously a very adaptable horse. He's obviously very tough, that he can take hard racing, and but it'll be interesting to see the 3-year-old that hasn't run this week, whether he's better than the other 2 next week, or...
We might have a look at the performance yesterday. And again, another classic confrontation coming up at Randwick in the AJC Derby, which will feature saintly Nothing Like a Dame and this mighty horse Octagonal, Max.
Yes, and Count Shivers, who ran a very, very good race here, trained by Lee Friedman. Lee, Count Shivers, where does he go from here?
Straight into the Sydney Cup now, Max.
Yes, there's Octagonal. What a courageous horse, what a good horse, but another tough run. You just wonder whether he can back up and be as good in the AJC Derby, but that's what quality horses are all about. They can do what the average horse doesn't.
He's won 5 Group 1 races, and if he wins the Derby, Max, when you look back to the Cox Plate, the Rosehill Guineas, the Canterbury Guineas and the Classic by any name, no horse, even Kingston Town, who missed the Canterbury Guineas, has won that quintet.
No, and that's what makes this spring all the more gripping. And I think it has been Octagonal and Lee Freedman's spring. As you said, Keith, a remarkable performance to win the Golden Slippers, as Lee has. But it's unfortunate that the roughness of the Golden Slipper is taking the glory away from that. And I'm not pointing the finger at Greg Hall over that. I'm just saying you look at the record of the Golden Slipper and you'll see it is a bit of a joke and it should be rectified.
Well, Lee, you're lucky you're sitting next to the good man here, because each week he gives us a Black Book special here on the show. What have you got for us this week, Max?
Well, Peep on the Sly, I think, is improving. I would like to see Larry Olsen on Peep on the Sly on the Derby. Larry, like Greg, was suspended yesterday over the Golden Slipper. Hello, Dale. Raced erratically yesterday and can do better, and Count Shivers in the Sydney Cup.
But when we talk about horses that have won plenty of prize money, Keith, you've just come back from the Dubai World Cup. The Americans dominated the inaugural event, and the one that got up certainly has given his connections plenty of lining in their pockets.
Racing has never had a heavyweight championship, and this was the race that gave it one. And this is the best racehorse in the world, Cigar. He's eyeballed by Burt Bacharach's horse, Soul of the Matter, in the straight. That's Cigar, the outside of the leading trio. Soul of the Matter comes from last, gets ahead in front, but this horse just called on qualities that I doubt whether any other horse has got. This made it 14 successive wins. He's got 2 to go to equal Citation's record of 16 on the trot. This is the best racehorse in the world.
$10 million. $10 million in earnings, eh?
Yep. Keith, the best racehorse in the world, they're racing on Bondi Beach. Look, the best racehorse in the world on sand or dirt, or call it what you will.
Well, the Damon was disappointing, actually, Keith, but apparently reports came through earlier in the week that the horse was a bit off colour leading up to the race.
No, he was OK leading up to the race. After the race, Damien Oliver suspected that he was feeling one of his legs. He was competitive until the 600 metres, but Cigar, who loves that Bondi sand-like track, was just far too good, Max.
Well, Keith, I'll say one thing. We'll forgive you for the mix-up of the daylight saving. Obviously, jet lag coming back from Dubai.
Yeah, it might have been, and can I say one more thing? I want to talk to Lee when he gets back about his plans for that beer for life.
Greg Hall, thanks for joining Keith in the Melbourne studios. All the very best with that appeal midweek.
Yep, thanks very much. Good on you, boys.
And Lee, what is going to happen with the beer for life?
Oh, I haven't even contemplated that, but I've got a lot of new friends I didn't know I had.
OK. We do appreciate, in the wake of the victory yesterday, to join us. 4 in a row is a mighty effort, and we're proud to have you here on Sportsworld. Thanks for joining
David.
us.
Thanks very much.
And Max, we look forward to your company again next week.
Good on you, Big G.
OK, we'll take a break. We'll be back with more on Sportsworld very shortly.